Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rabbi from thesofercenter.com. In today's video, I'm going to explain to you what is a Shalos Tinok. Sometimes when I'm checking a Tefillin or Mezuzah, I'll come across a letter which is not written correctly. And the way we verify its status is by making a Shalos Tinok, which is asking a child. Before I explain to you how this process works, there's a couple of things you have to know. The first thing you have to know is, in order for a Tefillin and Mezuzah to be kosher, it has to have all the letters and the words of the sections from the Torah that make up the Mezuzah and the Tefillin. If a letter is not written correctly, it would not be considered kosher, because it wouldn't say the words of the Torah. I'll give you an example. If you look over here, between my fingers, you'll see the word asher. You see the resh over there? That's a resh. A resh has a very wide head. The difference between a resh and a vav has a very narrow head, and a resh has a very wide head. So in order to be kosher, it has to say asher, which is the letters of the word from the Torah, asher. Now, if a sofer by mistake wrote a vav instead of a resh, it would not be considered kosher because it doesn't say the word of the Torah. So why can't you simply just, well, if it's supposed to be a resh and it's too narrow, add a little bit of ink, make it into a resh. Or if it's a resh and it's supposed to be a vav, why can't you just erase it and rewrite a vav? Why can't you do that? So that's the second thing that you have to know. And that is that Tefillin and Mezuzahs need to be written in sequence. Which means that this entire Mezuzah, from the first letter here till the last letter, was all written in sequence. If a letter is written incorrectly somewhere in the middle, you can't simply erase it and make a correction in the middle, because then it will be written out of sequence and it would not be considered kosher. Now, sometimes we'll have a scenario where the sofer by mistake, and even experienced sofer can make this kind of mistake, where they'll make the resh not quite as long as it needs to be, and it could be enter a question status of a vav, or sometimes they'll make a vav a little bit too wide, and then it could be a questionable status of a resh. So when something like that happens, is it a resh or is it a vav? Because if it's clearly definable, a resh or a vav, and we know that it's in the wrong place, then it will be not considered kosher. But sometimes it will be somewhere in the middle. So when we have a letter that we're not sure what the status is, we have to be able to identify what the letter actually is. And that's where the child comes in. It's, what does a child know that I don't know? So the answer is, that's the power of the child. Let me show you this Mezuzah here, because this Mezuzah has the question. This is the word, this is the letter in question. So you see the word is tishma'u. If you look at the vav at the end of the word, it's a little bit wider than what it needs to be. So when I look at this vav, or when anybody who knows how to read this word looks at this vav, you may say, oh, it still looks like a vav. Because you know that it's supposed to be a vav. So you're influenced by the context of the letter, because you know what the word is supposed to mean. But a child, when we ask a child what this letter is, I'm not asking a child who knows how to read and could read the letter within the context of the word. We're asking a child, either a boy or a girl, who knows the aleph beis very well. They're very proficient in the aleph beis, but they don't yet know how to read. The best age for this is a child who knows the aleph beis very well and is learning the vowels and the kudos for the letters. So they know the aleph beis very well. I don't want to ask a child that's so young that's not yet sure what all the letters are, because maybe he'll read the letter wrong because he doesn't know the aleph beis. And I don't want to ask a child who's too old who's going to read it within the context of the word. So you have to find a child just the perfect age that they know all the aleph beis, proficient, they're good, they know the letters well, but they don't know what the word is supposed to say, so they could simply read it absentmindedly, read the letter, and just tell me what it is. Now, if the child, when they read it, it's called Gilei Milsa. They reveal the true status of the letter because they're not influenced by anything on what the letter is supposed to actually be. So then, assuming the child reads it right, we're allowed to make some small corrections in order that in the future, this shiloh, this question, should not arise again. However, if the child reads it wrong, then the Mezuzah is not considered kosher, or the Tefillin is not considered kosher, and it would have to be buried. Now, this also applies to a Torah. Sometimes we'll ask a child on a question on a Torah, but more often than not in a Torah, because the Torah is different than Tefillin Mezuzahs, it doesn't have to be written in sequence. So usually a question in a Torah won't have to ask a child. We'll just simply make the correction, unless it's like Shabbat or Shabbos, and we're reading the Torah in the shul, in the synagogue, and we can't fix it because it's Shabbos, and we need to know what the letter is. So then we'll make a Shalos Tinok. We'll ask a child to, hopefully he'll read it the way it needs to be read, and we could continue using the Torah in the synagogue. So that's the times when we'll really make a Shalos Tinok on a Torah. Usually in a Torah, we'll just make the correction to make the letter right. So now, like you'll see in the video, which I'm going to show you momentarily, how I actually brought the mezuzah home and I showed it to my son. Before I showed him this vav and this mezuzah, because every single mezuzah is a little bit different, and every handwriting is different. So before I ask my son to read the vav in question, I have him read a couple of different vavs and reishas within this mezuzah, so I can have him and make him familiar with this ksav. So when it comes to the letter in question, it shouldn't be read according to how he imagines a reish in his mind, but just how the reish and how the vavs are made in this mezuzah, and you're going to see how this works. So stay tuned, here comes the video. Now, the way you do a Shalos Tinok properly is you don't actually point to the letter and ask the child, what is this letter? Because I don't want the child to be suspicious and to start scrutinizing the letter. I want it to simply read the letters, just speak the truth, not suspecting anything. So as you'll see in the video, which I'm going to be showing you in a moment, I don't ask my son which letter it is. I just have him read the letters in the mezuzah, and he simply reads them as he sees them.
Shin, Resh, Saf,
Yeah.
Lamed, Aleph, Vav, Saf,
Good job.
Saf, Shin, Mem, Ayin, Resh, Aleph, Lamed, Mem, Sadik,
Well, let's go backwards.
Mem, Lamed, Aleph, Resh, Ayin, Mem, Shin, Saf.
Good job. You're such a good Aleph Beis reader. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, like the video. And if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. That way when I make future videos, you'll get notified. If you want to see more videos where I take you behind the scenes and I show you how I fix Torahs and what goes into the checking Tefillin and Mezuzahs, check out these videos right over here. I'll see you on the next video.